Back everyone to episode 66. Just moving right along. It's crazy.
Crazy how those numbers get up there.
Yeah, everybody's in the house. Tyler, Lisa, Kyle, myself. So midsummer, a lot of stuff going on. It's been very busy. So speaking of, before we get into earnings and all the other fun stuff, how's summer going for everybody?
Fast.
Fast. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost August already.
It's crazy.
A little depressing, right? I know. Minnesota, we got 3-4 really nice months, and
they fly
we're through
by.
most of them.
But the winter takes a long time. Yeah, it feels like it doesn't pass that fast.
Lisa, what do you think of our summers from a different country perspective?
I think summers in Minnesota are usually great. Like summers are beautiful with all the lakes and all of that. But I don't know if it's just me. I think it's my third. Yeah, it's my third summer. But I feel like this year, especially, it's hotter than usual. At least for the summers that I experienced here. I don't know if you agree with that. I don't know. I do not enjoy this summer that much, to be honest.
Damp.
I would say more wet in my mind than
humid.
Hot.
Yeah.
Last couple of days.
And it was a little bit more drier the other two before, which I prefer. But anyways.
How's the roaring loon loving summer?
Sad it's almost over.
Yeah.
It does go fast. You blink and it's over. So yeah, just trying to be on the lake and fish and boat.
Kyle's the true Minnesotan. He's got the house and the
full experience.
Yeah, house in the metro area, and then the cabin up north. And
right.
Kids are up there hanging out, having a good time.
Yeah.
Winning fishing competition.
They did. They picked up some hardware this year. Yeah. They didn't win, but in their category they got second and third. So
wow,
Minnesotans in the making.
Yeah, right. So
that's awesome. All right, let's jump into a little bit. We're gonna go back to two truths and a lie. I couldn't follow the other day when you guys were doing lies and truths. So
you got to fail fast.
Yeah,
fail fast.
Something else. So. Today we're going to do it about Meta, since Meta reports tonight. We're recording this on Wednesday before the report, so I figured, let's fire up some stats about Meta. It's been a good stock. So, Meta stock has nearly doubled the S&P 500 in the last 5 years. B, Meta generates over 5% of the revenue from the namesake metaverse. You remember before Meta was a different name? C, since the lows in 2022, not too long ago, the stock has 10x the performance of Apple stock. So those are your options. Let's start with Kyle on this one.
Wow, this is a hard one. I do find it ironic they switched to Meta, and the metaverse is not a thing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It doesn't exist. Although I was talking to somebody yesterday. Was it you? We're already in a simulation.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, I was talking to somebody. It was, it's like odds are very high. We're already there.
That's your second simulation coming up.
Oh yeah, deja vu. There's the black cat twice. I'm gonna go with B, just because it sounds fun. 5% of revenue from the metaverse seems high, but I'm gonna go with it.
Seems high. Yeah, okay. Let's go, Tyler. I think Lisa's done her homework like usual.
I do not cheat.
I feel like B is such a weird one that it's probably true. So, but I'm struggling with A and C because I'm sure Apple's not been a good stock since 2022, on a relative basis compared to Meta. But I don't know if it's 10x Apple. Meta has been up significantly over the last 5 years, so I could see it outperform. Well, 5 years includes 2022. Meta was awful in 22, so I'll go with A.
Okay, nice.
I believe A is correct.
Because you looked at the chart, or
no?
No. Lisa pulled up the chart before we came in here.
No, but then you have also 2020 in there.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end of it.
COVID lows would be out of there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Actually, Meta held up pretty well.
Yeah. The 5% revenue from metaverse, I do not see that, to be honest, because it doesn't exist, like I said. And 5% seems high for something that is basically vanished from the minds. And since the lows, I mean, it outperformed Apple because Apple is a laggard, but I
Mhm.
don't know if it's 10x, to be honest. That seems high. I
Mhm.
go with C.
Wow, you want to see? All right. Well, drum roll. Kyle's the winner again.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Summed it up well, and that's why I kind of put this metaverse generates. It's like 2 billion out of 166, so it's like one.
They actually disclosed the number.
Yeah, I
I'm
just saw
surprised.
Well, I saw an article is kind of hidden in there, so it's
okay.
kind of not disclosed. But
Yeah, 'cause-
they've generated in 2024 $2 billion of revenue. They lost 70 billion.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
just put that into perspective of how well the stock's done. You basically you changed your name to Metaverse, and like you said, I find it ironic that
Yeah.
you changed your name. This is going to be the new catchy, flashy thing that's going to drive our business forward. And, oh, by the way, 5 years later, your name is not right. You're
Mhm.
No one can remember what it actually
No,
is or what it was supposed
it's
to
1% of your revenue, and oh, by the way, you've lost $70 billion
Mhm.
in creating this metaverse.
That's
So,
crazy.
Mhm.
and the other stats are actually true. So it's
Mhm.
the first one, I think it's up 210%. The S&P's up like 100 and it's 205 versus 110, so almost double. Which shocked me was C though. I thought most of you would
Me
guess C.
too. I
Mhm.
thought
So
it's probably not 10x.
685% off the lows, and Apple's only up 55%. That was
Wow.
November of
Wow.
2022.
I mean, Apple through 23, 24 really wasn't that.
Yeah.
Like, I know they were in the Mag 7, but I know Microsoft and Apple were significant laggards compared
Mhm.
to NVIDIA, Meta.
Yeah.
Alphabet wasn't the greatest. Neither was Amazon, but they still outperformed Apple and Microsoft. I knew Apple wasn't very good,
But 10x, right?
10x
I mean,
is
so
pretty
that's
impressive,
that's where it comes into, stock picking and
But
different things. I mean,
but I
that
mean,
makes a
what
big difference.
23, 24, I mean, Meta had to have been up like 23. Meta was up what, close to 100%?
I think it was over like 124 or
And
something. I
then-
don't know the exact numbers, but it was over 100%.
And then like another 50% in 24, right? Something
Yeah.
like that. And Apple was probably up 6-7% and or
Yeah.
whatever the market was, maybe in 23, and then sucked in 24. So
Yeah, there you go. So interesting facts. Kyle, winner. All right, hot button. Let's talk about tariffs. Certainly, we've got sick of talking about them. They kind of went out of the news, and they've kind of always been in the news. But what we want to talk about recently, we've seen deals with Europe and Japan. But let's kind of walk through kind of April 2nd was Liberation Day of tariffs and what that meant. Market sold off pretty aggressively. We've been showing a chart that shows the U.S. effective tariff rates. If you go back 100 years prior to the tariffs, we were about, back in the Smoot-Hawley in the 30s, we were at 20-some%. We went all the way down to 2.5% with globalization, income tax that we don't need necessarily tariffs anymore. April 2nd came around, announcements, and all of a sudden tariffs jumped to the effective tariff rate would have been almost 25%. So pretty meaningful. So I just want to kind of get you guys' take on kind of where they jumped to and kind of where they are now, and you kind of walk our way through it.
well, we've had a few deals now,
Mhm.
right? So tariff's been pushed back, and now the new deadline is this Friday.
Mhm.
And we've had I think-
China even later than that already.
Yeah, China's later than that.
August 12th, I think.
And
in
they're-
China.
is their meet or summit over?
There's some, I think it's
I think
officially
it's over now, yeah. But I heard a commentary out of the White House saying that, it's not officially a truce still because Trump hasn't signed off on it, but I'm guessing that'll be fine. Anyways, we've had Japan, Europe, and UK. EU is the biggest one just because that's on a block EU basis. That's our largest trade partner, 20%, but they're at 15% tariff. Japan's at 15%.
15 across the board, right?
Across the board.
Yeah.
Mhm.
With some other agreements in return. And then you've got UK at 10, but Trump has said that the global trade base rate is going to be anywhere between 15 and 20. So, I mean, just by standard math, we're probably going to be around 15 to, because it's our larger trade partner, so more weighted towards 15. So maybe like 15 to 17% effective tariff rate.
Yeah.
Would be my.
Lisa, any thoughts on where we're going and where we've been?
It's still insane because when we look at investors right now, they seem to kind of look through that at the moment and kind of deadlines coming up. The first deadline, it was like, oh my God, like completely craziness. And we saw that with the sell-off in April. And now it's like, yeah, so what? We have another deadline, we have another trade deal coming in, but it doesn't bother the market all that much, which I think is a little bit of an underestimation right now. So what was an overreaction, obviously, in April is a little bit an underestimation now. I think it's being seen a little bit too easygoing because, like you said, I mean, we still like jumped from 2.5 tariff rate to where we will settle 17%. That's huge. We haven't seen the tariff impact all that much so far, which is against the consensus and against what economists projected and all of that, which helps investors now kind of seeing it a little bit more easy, but it's still there. And when we also think of companies and we discussed it in prior episodes, just better in stocking up their inventories before the tariffs actually hit, because they all saw that in 2018 already. So it was a little bit tougher this time, but still some were similar when it comes to that. So they learned from that. But the average S&P 500 company inventory rate is around 90 days. So that wears down now. So we're coming to the end of
because
that.
April's on 90 days,
Right.
right?
So some companies more, some less, obviously, but average is 90 days, and we're coming up on that. So goods that will kind of hit the shelves the next few weeks are already tariffed at whatever rate since April. So we will probably see some more impact on the economy and on businesses. We already heard it with earnings. Some companies took huge hits already, or say, hey, we have to raise prices sooner or later. So I think the market is underestimating that a little bit at the moment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Kyle, you got any takeaway on kind of where we were, kind of where we're going?
Yeah, I agree with Tyler's commentary. I think the 15 to 17 is definitely a place we're going to settle. There's still more deals to come. And this morning sounds like India, even though they're not a huge trading partner, is 25% tariffs with additional punitive penalties for defense purchases from Russia. Sounds
I didn't even see that headline this morning.
there's a hard, quote unquote, hard non-extendable deadline for August 1st. So we'll see if that changes anything there. But I think, to Lisa's point, the kind of the volatility and what has come, the buildup of inventories for some of these companies, and the potential bleed through into consumer pricing. I don't know. It is interesting because like standard economists, and my background is in applied economics, but you look at it and it's like historically all the academics come out and say, tariffs are bad, right? Makes sense. Haven't really seen it yet. So it is interesting to see. It doesn't mean that we will or won't, but it does kind of ring in a interesting or parallel to what we'd seen in the last 4 years with modern monetary theory, whereas like you can endlessly print money and you won't see inflation. And that effectively did happen for the first 1, 2, 3 years. And then it came back, with a fury, and it was a big problem. So I do wonder the timing of the actual impact, the bleed through of the tariffs.
Do you also then think investors are not thinking of that right now, or the market is not thinking of that right now, expecting that, because we saw such an easygoing so far with tariffs and more or less benefits even so?
I think that's part of it. I think the other component would be why they're not reacting as aggressively now as they were initially. Is it's kind of like the Band-Aid's been ripped off. And what we saw originally, I mean, we talked about this before, ad nauseum, is the rate at like China, it was like nothing, and then it went up to 100 and 100 and change or whatever, and then it was like a week later another penalty to 145, and it was like and then it just reset back down to kind of where we've been. So I think it was the unexpected volatility, the not knowing what people don't know. And now people, look at us today. Tyler, I think, hit the nail on the head. Is like, it's, we can kind of expect this range. So
at least it goes down from here and not up again.
Right. And
that's expected.
Right. Like investors hate uncertainty. That's why everybody does modeling. Right. So, and you're trying to like be cute with questions on the earnings calls to management to kind of round the rough corners to be able to say like, what is the margin rate? What is the free cash flow? What's the, what are all these components that can help drive the value of a company, tariffs are no different, right? So if the expectation is 15 to 17%, I think investors have already stomached that and priced it in. I think where it gets crazy on volatility is if you saw something, a tail event happen where, China doesn't play ball and then the number is 150. I think that would be a big shock.
Yeah. The whole thing just kind of surprises me, right? Also, when we come out April 2nd, these big tariffs are announced, market freaks out, down 20%. Everybody gets comfortable. It's economic chaos versus art of the deal. I was in the camp, most of us in the camp where it was art of the deal. We'll see. And that's kind of what the market's proving out. But what surprises me, that the level that we may end up, that 15 to 17% you guys are talking about, I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit lower than that, but that's a pretty big number. I mean, because if you would have, the Liberation Day came out and said, hey, investors, by the way, tariffs are going to be 15% in 3 months from now, I think the market probably would have had a different reaction. But it's weird that you say it's such a big number and you walk it back, and then market's like, 15% isn't so bad. And again, we're not seeing the fallout yet. I mean, it's early yet.
Not yet, but so good at Keurig Dr. Pepper reported last week, I think it was. But we have to remember too, though, that the U.S. economy, the U.S. consumer is obviously very, very resilient, right? We've seen that time and time again. So we saw it with the 9% inflation, right? It didn't really, yes, it impacted consumers, but they can slow. Like we're still spending at a similar rate that we have been, right? Even though we had 9%. So if you get this one-time hit of, call it 5%, because if you think the exporter is going to eat some of the cost, the importer is going to eat some of the cost, and then consumers going to eat some of the cost. So Keurig Dr. Pepper came out last week with their report. They actually had pricing power, so they rose prices. They had positive volume for once, which is pretty rare for a consumer-facing company at this point. And they had product innovation, right? So you come out with, and it was more of a acquisition, but the Ghost energy drink, right? So they had volume growth, I think, for the company, for Ghost specifically, was 6%.
Well, what is Ghost?
It's just like another energy.
Yeah, like a Red Bull.
Yeah, okay. But you get different product innovations, right? Where companies can, maybe it's a new or expanding category that they can pretty much price wherever they want, right? So if they get rid of old products, introduce new ones at a different price versus this old one, right? You're not necessarily seeing the price increase. You're just seeing it as a price for this new product, right? So companies are very good at that. So I think that's what you're going to start to see is companies focus on product innovation, maybe efficiencies, but at the end of the day, consumers are going to be able to take on the prices at a 15 to 17%. Now the 25%, I don't think that would be a bigger issue, but the 15 to 17, I think, is manageable for the exporters, the importers, and the consumer.
Yeah, I think it's manageable as well. It's funny that the degree of 0 to 25 is too much, but 15, and the market's been all that. And I agree with you 100%. I think, at first we were told the consumer's going to eat all, whether it's 25 or 15. That's certainly not the case. Like you said, it's going to be, bore by all three parties involved. And depends on the demand of the product too, right? Some may be forced more on the consumer. Some may be more on the actual importer or exporter. So,
well, I think when we had the April 2nd Liberation Day, a lot of and then the subsequent pause, a lot of companies came out and said, if we go back to those tariffs, we're going to have to push most of that through to the consumer. Right. And then now we've walked it back to 15% from the effective of 25. I mean, depending on the country, right? Vietnam was what, like 49%?
49.
If you're Nike, you're not going to be able to take on 49% price increase, right? Like you're going to have to pass on 40 of the 49.
Yeah.
Right. But 15 to 17, Nike can say, okay, well, instead of it being $100 sneaker, it's going to be 105.
Okay.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's kind of the effective tariff rate we kind of covered. The other thing I want to touch on is the revenue that we're actually just generating from these tariffs, right? That's actually goes into the revenue of the government. And last month was a record month. I think June was the reported month was June of 27 billion. The year before was 4 billion. So we brought in 27 versus 4. And if you look at the full year of 2024, I think it was around 77 billion. So now with this big jump up in June, that run rate before that, we were at 108 billion of revenue brought in. just put that in perspective. That's the 77 billion that we brought in last year is like 1.6% of overall revenue budget. And so your run rate now is going to be 350, 400, 450. That's going to actually add, before I kind of like 1.6%, if these tariffs double, go from, 2.5% to 5%, okay, it's 3% of our revenue. But now you're talking double digits, 10%. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
This is a little unrelated, but as you were walking through this, the first thought that came into my mind was the unbundling of services at commercial airlines. If you think about what you used to get,
for the bags
like
and not the
at
bags.
Delta,
you want a
whatever.
seat?
Yeah, you want a seat, you want bags, you want, whatever is just interesting. And this process is almost like an untapped revenue line that, the US as a company is used to give for free.
Yeah.
And now they've unbundled. Now you have to pay for check-on
Yeah.
or carry-on or whatever.
It's meaningful.
Right.
I mean, what are your two thoughts?
Let's get those handouts going.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when you're thinking about budget deficits, when you're thinking about U.S. debt levels, I think it's a meaningful impact for our potential. I guess we'll probably never balance our budget at this point, but
If we can bend the curve, at least, right?
Yes, right. You slow that growth of debt increase. I think from a broader investor perspective, that's probably a good thing, especially, U.S. consumers and interest rates, and what does that mean for term premiums? And I mean, it boils down to mortgage rates and all, like, throughout the economy of anybody that's borrowing money. I think it's an important thing to at least, like you said, bend that curve, regardless of how big of a deficit that currently is. Anything helps.
Yeah.
So,
Lisa, any thoughts on?
Yeah, I probably take the opposite opinion here. I'm a little bit cautious about that, to be honest. I might be right, I might be wrong. I don't know. I just think first, it's like for the impact that we have now, it was a lot since April for that. When we kind of see what the percentage of the overall revenues are, then we are higher than 1% now. But still, like, for that itsy bit compared to the big picture, there was a lot going on, right? So I don't really know if that was worth the squeeze, to be honest. I don't know if it's sustainable. And that goes back to what are the actual reasons that all the tariffs and all of that started in the first place, right? And we heard about first, it was immigration, especially with our neighbors north and south, and fentanyl and all of that, right? Then it was, okay, we have to increase the revenue of the US because we have such a huge deficit and we have to do something about it. Then it was, hey, the US is getting treated unfairly, which goes back to the deficit. But then it's like also, hey, we have to consume more US goods, Americans, which is a little bit contradictory. So there's a lot of different arguments that sometimes do not really align well with each other or go hand in hand. So but when it comes to revenues, I don't think that that's sustainable. First of all, the tariff rates needs to be that high for quite a while that plans out. Then when we think in 3.5 years, we have a potential different administration. Again, we do not know yet, but there can be a change not far along. Then the next thing is there might be future deals along the line. Nobody, I think it's the expectation now, but it doesn't say that the deals with Japan or UK or the EU kind of sticks the way they are right now. They probably maybe negotiate further or
these aren't treaties. They're just,
so some other benefits that come up for both parties that need to be negotiated further. Then it's also generally imports might drop. When we think of the European Union, it's 15% across the board, which is better than 25%, but still very high. So overall imports might drop, which also decreases their revenue again. So I don't think that it is sustainable, to be honest.
Interesting.
I think it will level off or probably come down again.
All right. I like Kyle's analogy of the airline. This is going to be newfound money for the government, and if these are sustainable, whether it's 3 years, 5 years plus, who knows? There'll be some dynamics change on imports and exports, but if you're actually applying these 10% plus tariffs, and you're now going to have, if you just do the simple math on, if we get to that 400 or 500 million, it's going to be about 10% of our revenue budget. That's equivalent to what corporate taxes are. Just think about that. All these, this tax rates on, corporations, all that, the money that the tariffs are going to bring in will be equivalent to that. That's 10%. That's significant. I think that'll be found money. It'll be hard for anybody, the next administration, whoever it is, to say, oh, by the way, we're going to put tariffs back from, say it's at 15%, we're going back to 5%. Now, obviously, the other side of the table, negotiating partners, they may have some differences of opinion as well. But we'll see. It's an interesting dynamic. Just what we've got out of these recent announcements, they weren't like full on treaties were with the U.S. and Japan. These are pretty significant. What with Japan, Tyler? What's going to invest
550 billion.
550 billion, and then
I mean,
these are soft numbers.
It's a weird number because there was already 500 billion committed prior to this deal. So in reality, there's only an additional 50 billion coming from this negotiation.
50 billion, but then you still get that 15% flat across the board, right?
Yeah. But I mean, SoftBank had already basically agreed to do 500 billion prior to this deal. And so now the 550 billion, it's like, okay, well, that's only an additional 50 billion in investment that came from this.
Do you really think that will kind of shape up that way? Because the SoftBank OpenAI deal got announced, I don't know, a couple of months ago now, and there were plans that something kind of meaningful should happen this year, but it hasn't realized, and they kind of toned down their plans dramatically. It doesn't really ramp up, and now we have another couple billions from Japan and from the EU. Like I think it's 800 until 2028, and also when it comes to energy, the EU agreed to buy a lot more energy. That came up from, like, we started at 80 billion last year, now 700. Like, that is meaningful. But do you really think that, given the OpenAI SoftBank slow rollout, kind of not really getting into not really taking off all that quick, do you think it is also poised for the other deals to kind of good for headlines, but probably not shaping up the way expected?
Well, I think it's a challenge for companies, right? So if you think about it, there's really only 3.5 years left of the presidency, right? So the question becomes, do companies they may commit capital, but do they truly put the shovel into the ground to start doing whatever CapEx they need to? And I know this is specific to Honeywell, but Honeywell on their call said that they're seeing problems not on the short cycle CapEx, but longer term CapEx cycle, because companies don't know what to do, right? So if you're unsure of whether the next regime or administration is going to keep these tariffs, do you really want to put that capital here into the U.S.? So I think it just has companies on pause still. And they commit they say they're going to commit capital to meet the demands of the 700 billion, right? But will it actually come to fruition? Who knows?
Right, that's my question.
Well,
that's
part of the deal, and
air,
it sounds good, but actually it doesn't shape up like that.
I think
my fear.
I think you're right on this. Was 750 from the EU, Japan, maybe that 550. Those numbers may not be right. I whatever these tariffs end up shaping out to be at the end of the day, I think 3 years from now, they're going to be in place. And next administration, I don't care, Republican or Democrat, I don't think they're going to be willing to give up that amount of revenue coming in. That's my opinion.
We saw that in 2018 when Trump.
They stayed in place?
Yeah, they did.
Like,
that's my point.
They stayed in place. Like, not all of them, but most of them stayed in place.
Most have stayed, and some got added too.
Some got added.
Yeah, so that's where
I think EVs got ramped to 100% under Biden, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, it depends. I mean, now it's a little bit more.
Kyle, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I guess it takes me back like over 10 years thinking about when Obama implemented the Clean Power Plan. You guys remember that? So Congress implemented this. I think it was in like 2010, 9, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there.
I
Yeah.
don't remember. that.
And
We were too young, Tyler.
Tyler's still in high
sorry, I'm
school.
dating myself
Yeah.
now. And
Even-
what basically the gist of it was to phase out coal thermal production for utility operators in the U.S. Across all the ISOs, and that kind of started that snowball down the hill. And then over the course of 2 or 3 years, it was litigated, went kind of ping pong through the courts, and it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. And I believe in 2014, it was struck down at the Supreme Court. And at that point, you had, about a president's, presidency term, kind of 3 to 4 years worth of time where this was already in place, kind of like the tariffs, right? It's an interesting parallel. And the companies, so it was struck down. And so that means that all the utility operators could go back to using thermal coal, no problem. But all the while, CapEx needed to be spent and allocated, right, over those 3 to 4 years. And even though now they've been unshackled and they could do what they wanted to and go back to coal if they wanted to, nobody did. So it does make me think like kind of like what's happening now with all the EV mandates and subsidies disappearing and the Green New Deal, getting gutted and all these other kind of changes happening. I think it's ultimately a speed bump. I think the number might not be that 750, whatever, plus or minus, but companies have to allocate capital eventually. And I think even though it might not be the full magnitude, this will definitely shape things. And Trump is very, very good at using a carrot and a stick. And he uses a stick very quickly. We've seen with the tariffs, and I think he rewards people with carrots pretty frequently. So I think if you have people renege and say, oh, just kidding, Honeywell, whoever, just kidding, I'm going to sandbag these numbers and not follow through, or SoftBank or whoever else, I think there will be a reckoning. So I'm more in the camp of Keith here, thinking like, this is probably newfound revenue that'll stick around, and it might slow as companies sandbag things on the investment, but I think it is definitely bending the direction in which people invest and companies invest.
All right, well said. I think that's. I mean, we talked tariffs for almost a half hour. I think that hopefully everybody's informed now. But it's an interesting topic, and I think we'll just leave it at that. So everybody should be up to speed. And the big takeaway I have is the amount of revenue that's going to generate for the U.S. economy going forward. Again, now that could change or not, but we'll see. I'm of the opinion that's going to be here for a while. So, all right, everybody, if you like this show, just like and subscribe.